So wonderful. Welcome, everyone, to our second event in the series that we're doing. I'm Bridget Greenwood, the founder of The Bigger Pie. What's The Bigger Pie about? I see blockchain and Web3 being revolutionary and how it can be used to change the way that we interact with everyone across the world. But that innovation is only going to be really exciting as everyone is at the design, development, and deployment table. And historically, we've seen women left out of that. And so the Bigger Pie is there to support the incredible women in the space, to make sure that we retain and we attract that talent. And we have a community of women who are C-suite, senior leaders, learning, growing, new in the space, been in the space as OGs, with an enormous peer-to-peer support. And we're doing some other initiatives, which I can touch on as we go throughout this session. So I would love to introduce you to Karen. Karen is one of the co-founders at Stack and is the co-host of our event today. Karen, would you like to introduce yourself and let everyone know a little bit more about Stack and what you do?
Of course. Hi, I'm Karen. I'm the co-founder at Stack. We're a recruitment agency and growth consultancy for startups and scale-up. And we work specifically with companies in the Web3 and blockchain space. So we help them find the right talent, develop their strategies, and also on the other side, help candidates to find the right role for themselves. And yeah, we partner with the Bigger Pie because we want to drive diversity and inclusion within the space. So really excited to host the second event. I really hope that is going to be really helpful for people that are looking for either a new role or people that want to advance their career. So I would definitely invite everyone to, if there is any questions you have around like hiring or applying for jobs, like drop them into the chat box and we'll try to answer as many as we can to just like really help you in finding your next career step. Yeah. You're on mute, Bridget.
That happen every time. I've only been doing this for however many years. Sharon, would you like to introduce yourself and give an overview of your experience and also the company you're representing?
Hi there. Yes, great to be here. Nice to see you again, Bridget. So as Bridget says, I've been in the space about 8 years now, and I've known Bridget for about 6 of those years. Fortunate enough to be involved with her when I was sort of like still getting my toes wet, trying to learn about the industry, going to lots of different meetups and events, trying to sort of like figure out who knows what about what. And we ultimately sort of like formed a great bond with a number of us, and ultimately just kind of helped each other understand the space, get connected, and we've been friends ever since. And right now I'm working as a chief product and marketing officer at a crypto startup. So obviously a subsegment of Web3. We have been around for about 4.5 years. We're based in the UK, in Wales, but we've just recently opened up a new office in London, just outside Liverpool Street. So, and we're also in a fortunate position that we just secured our Series B funding. And usually what that means is companies now have to onboard a lot of staff to basically go and deliver on all the promises that they made to the VCs. So I can talk about some of our roles a bit later, but yeah, definitely in the fortunate position to have some roles open and some money to spend.
Amazing, especially that last bit, some money to spend. Anastasia.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much, Bridget and Karen, for inviting me. I'm happy to be here. I am in a very interesting position right now because I have just concluded my engagement with a Web3 startup that had just raised their second round of funding, so seed round of 5 million. And I have helped them with sales marketing strategy, but also it turns out that they actually needed a marketing manager, and I actually helped them recruit. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but I definitely understand Sharon's point on now, as the company has secured funding, they are going to go forward with full steam and just trying to deliver on the promises that they've made. So same with the company that I worked with. And the second bit that I want to say, I was actually at the same time also interviewing for a job, and I got like 3 offers in 1 week. So I think I can speak about both as a recruiter for a Web3 company without Web3 experience, and also as a candidate for marketing and business development leadership positions in Web2. And I think that would be my unique contribution to this conversation. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Ivo, is it Ivo or Ivo?
Ivo is the German spelling, but it's fine.
Ivo, yes.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, my name is Ivo. I'm the interim VP people at Laxo, a layer 1 blockchain that's particularly in the digital fashion space. And we're working on something that we call the universal profile, which is like a universal user ID that allows people basically to use different platforms with the same identity, and then also bring on all your virtual reality assets, basically. Namely, we have launched a couple of sub-projects, including the Dematerialized, for example, which is a marketplace for physical objects. And yeah, the team's been growing since I joined about a year ago from 20 to 60 people. We're still hiring at the moment, mostly tech, but now also we'll be adding a few things around product design and production, because we're expanding in the fashion space, so to say. So that's quite exciting to bridge Web3 with anything in the fashion industry.
Amazing. Hi, I would love to hear from you.
So No, sorry.
I work at Outlier Ventures, and I've interviewed quite a few of the amazing people we have at Outlier Ventures, but also we support Outlier Ventures as an accelerator. So we work with a lot of Web3 startups who are also hiring. And that's one of the things we support them with. Personally, I got into the Web3 space about a year and a half ago, and I was one of those Web2 to Web3 converts. So if anyone has any questions about that, I'd be happy to sort of give my insights, both from personal experience and from what I've seen.
And I do want to iterate, we do this event, this is for you. It's for you who's in the audience, who wants to understand where you are in your career, what you're looking for, and to take access, have access to our experts. We want to make this as interactive as possible. We'll ask questions until such time as somebody in the audience puts their hands up, and then we can go to you, we can ask the questions, and we'll make sure that we've covered all the things that we think are important throughout the hour. But we'd really love to hear more from each of you. And if you want to give us some of your background, if you can just say that you're looking for a role or your experiences in whichever area, then that would be quite useful, as well as we discover some more of the roles that are live right now with our organizations. So Sharon, I'm going to go to you first again, because you've said, I know that you came in as the third or fourth person in the company and that you've hired 65 people. Oh, sorry, you probably hired more than 65 people. So can you tell us about what that journey looks like from you, from the recruiter side, dropping sort of tips along the way of what the applicant can look at? And we can sort of delve into more of it. For the rest of the panelists, as you can share experiences, let this be as much of a conversation as possible. Sharon.
Okay, so I think that there are some very basic sort of like guidelines that you need to think about when you're applying for jobs. And I'm not going to go into a lot of those, but really at the high level, it is about think about who you are, play to your strengths, be very clear what you can deliver to the business. And that is for any role. Okay, so when you're talking to a hiring manager, or even you're getting through the door with sort of like the recruitment staff, be very clear on what you can help deliver for the business, because that's what they care about, is how can you help my business grow? Now, in terms of sort of like Web3, you also have to realize that a lot of our companies are very small and we're growing. Now, it's good that we're growing, but in the early days, especially for when you're in like 4 or 5 people, or even 10, 15 people, you're going to be a jack of all trades. You might come in and be a one-man band marketing department. So you're going to have to do product marketing, product branding, communications, the PR, the outreach. So if you're sort of like an all of everything a person, then maybe go in a smaller startup where you will have sort of like responsibility across the piece. But if you feel that you are a very, very specific type of person, so for example, if what you do is social media or you do brand, for example, then you might want to go to a larger organization in which they've built a specific role for a brand person, because when you're in early doors, you don't have the luxury of hiring somebody for a very specific role. And so I think that is how CoinCover transitioned, in that early doors, we hired people that had quite broad skills. They could come in, they could do different things, they could even straddle departments such as product and marketing or product and engineering. But now, as we've gotten bigger, our operating model has changed. We have departments, we have people focused on engineering, people focused on product, people focused on operations. So it's really important for you to figure out, if you're applying, you want a job, who are you, right? Are you a person that can fit in a very specific role, or you're a broad person that can really straddle across different roles? So I think that's really important to understand in these Web3 businesses, because most of them are not fully established, and you have to think about how you really can fit in.
Very good point, and I'd love to hear Haya as well, and Eva specifically, where you've seen that happen in Web3, because one of the things that I know that is often said is that your career progression in Web3 can be, 1 year in Web3, 1 year in blockchain, 1 year in crypto is like 4 years outside of that space, in terms of how busy, how demanding, but also how quickly that you can actually advance your career up the ranks. So I'd love to be able to hear from any of our other panelists how true that has been for their experiences, and how that generalist manages to rise with the company and the seniority.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Karen.
No, I just wanted to say, like, we see that a lot, like, especially with people that started their career, like, more or less in Web3, that they advanced, like, very, very quick to, like, the next level, just because they got to wear so many hats and they gained so much Web3 experience, because it's their main experience from just looking at the working environment. So we've seen people advance, like, very quick, like within like 3-4 years, what otherwise would take them like 10 years. So we've seen that, like, definitely a lot within the market. But I didn't want to interrupt you, Haya, so just go ahead.
No, yeah. I think, yeah, I have a couple of thoughts, but one thought is, like, you really have to be working at a company that you believe in, and you believe that growth will come to that company, because if that company doesn't grow, your career isn't going to grow. But, and I think it's important to sort of reflect on your personal risk appetite as well. So, when you're choosing what company, if you want a really early stage one or later one, like, really reflect. And an earlier stage one, there's a lot of room to grow and shoot up with the company, but there's also more risk inherent in it. So if you want more risk, more chaos, so be honest with yourself about how much risk and chaos you can handle. And then if you're looking for a little bit more stability, then maybe go for something more established. The second point I had about, like, jumping up, I think, especially maybe for people who let's say it's their first role in Web3, I really think sometimes, maybe you can't jump into a senior role in an organization just because you don't have enough Web3 experience. But once you make the crossover and gain that Web3 experience and start tying it into everything you have from your previous experience, then it's really going to be easy to shoot up the ladder, because you have all of this stored experience that doesn't go to waste, and all you needed is like a couple of months of conversion, let's say, into Web3. So I think that's why sometimes, like, careers accelerate quickly in Web3.
And Eva, do you have anything to add on this subject?
Yeah. Yeah, I think, like, most of it has been said in terms of, like, understanding the environment you like to be in, and obviously with, like, small startups that add a lot of people, like the bigger they become, the more it requires structure, and then that allows you to rank up if you want to, I think. But it's also important to know that it's also fine if you don't want to rank up, and like stay within a certain topic or position, particularly in Web3, because we hire a lot of people from the community, and usually they are very driven by the mission statement that we have, and not necessarily come in with like a clear career path or anything, but really just want to contribute. And I mean, we're also internally, we'll try to keep hierarchies as flat as possible, and more have people being self-organized and then like working together in a more agile way, and trying to create as little overhead and hierarchy as possible, to be honest, because we don't believe that that's the kind of top-down management approach that we would like to see within a Web3 company in the first place.
Very good point indeed. So what are the horror stories that we can share? Sharon, I'll go back to you again. What are the things, before we went live, we had a little chat, and you said that you kissed a lot of frogs. So can you give us a bit more color and story around what that looks like?
Yeah, I mean, in the early days, and again, when I was sort of like helping to grow CoinCover, this was 3.5 years ago. So the environment for finding people in this space 3.5 years ago is very different from what it is now. And I think when you interview, it's very hard to sort of look at a resume, have a conversation with somebody, and really get a feel for what they're actually going to deliver on a day-to-day basis. So I don't think that that's actually specific to Web3. It's sometimes it's just really hard to sort of like get a feel for somebody. And so I think, I transition, like a lot of people do, into doing sort of like case-based interview questions. So give me an example of how you dealt with this, or tell me what you did when something went wrong. So I ended up using a lot more sort of like case-based questions to get examples from candidates versus the, do you do SEO? Do you do SEM? Have you built websites before? They tended to be way too generic. And so I really had to sort of like think about, okay, what am I trying to extract here? But I think that's not to do with Web3. That is recruitment in general. And I think that a lot of people, unfortunately, which you can sort of get to the point of, they flat out lie. So, I'd had a lot of people that said to me, oh yeah, I've been in crypto and I've got some Bitcoin and I've got Ethereum. And I'm like, oh, great. When did you buy Ethereum? And, they'd give a date. And I'd be like, yeah, I'm pretty sure it wasn't out then, but okay. And then you say, okay, talk me through your journey, sort of. How did you learn about Bitcoin, and what was the very first instance that you purchased it? And often they'll trip over, and it turns out that they never have actually purchased any Bitcoin. And so, it was, again, it looked good on resume that they threw out a lot of the keywords, and you're like, oh, okay, great. They've purchased it. They've played with DeFi. They've bought a couple of NFTs. They've minted some things. But when you actually dug in and said, okay, well, what platform did you use? How did you fill out your metadata? How are you checking the provenance of the NFTs? It all fell apart. So it's not that you have to blag your way to get a job in crypto. And I think that's important. You don't have to lie. You have to basically extol your transferable skills. So if you're a really good engineer or you're a really good operations person, then talk about that and talk about what value you bring to a company, because the company will help you learn about the business, crypto, Web3. It doesn't matter which company you go to, there will be idiosyncrasies of their business they have to teach you. And so I wouldn't really overthink it. Again, go back to understanding what skills you can bring to the table, and don't lie, because you will get caught.
If I may, I just wanted to ask Sharon, actually, I'm very interested in her point of view. So when people lied about purchasing coin, and I understand because of your company, this is very important to have dealt with cryptocurrencies. But why do you think they lie about this? Like, having dealt with crypto, is it what they believe would enhance their chances to get hired? Because to me, the best businesses sometimes, arise from founders that don't have anything to do with that business. So maybe just what is your opinion on that?
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, our business is about protecting crypto, and it's about having people understand how to keep it safe, to buy insurance for it, that sort of thing. And so, it's really delving into questions of what do you think motivates people to buy crypto? Do you think they care about insurance? What was your journey? And so it's really it's not about actually trying to trip people up in the questions. It's really just about, tell me your experience. What are your thoughts? What are your feelings? But ultimately, I think, yes, it's probably they say what they think the recruiter wants to hear, which I'm sure many of us do. Like we read the room, we think, okay, what are they trying to find out here? How can I add value? Which is all good stuff, right? You're trying to elevate your strong points. But I think you just have to be careful, because often the recruiters will dig in with a follow-up question or two.
Absolutely. Did anyone wanted anything else to add? Otherwise, I'm going to ask each of you to go through and say what roles that you have open at the moment. We have already, so thank you for everyone who's put their hand up in the chat, as it were. We've got Heather here. Heather is looking for a solidity engineering new role, but I think you're underserving yourself there, because I think your seniority needs to be added into your experience, and to make sure that we match you with the right role. Mohammed is also an engineer. We have Cristobal, who is an affiliate marketing professional looking to switch into a marketing role within Web3. So Anastasia, I'm sure you've got a lot that you can share there. We have a full stack software developer open for a new position, a senior project lead and experience of working in innovation creative partnerships, Unity game developer in a crypto startup. So bearing in mind that that's who we've got live with us, and obviously this is being recorded and will go out to a broader audience. Haya, why don't you talk to us about what's going on at Outlier Ventures, specifically about what roles you've got and how and what expertise you're looking for, and how someone can present themselves to be able to let Outlier Ventures know they're the right candidate. And you're on mute, my love.
Great. Okay, so I'm pulling up my notes because we have quite a few roles open and different levels of seniority. So we are looking for a head of partnerships. So as Outlier grows, we want to, build out our partnerships more, like enterprise partnerships, and bringing them in. So we're really looking for someone who can take the lead. I would say it's quite a senior role, and we want someone who's able to sort of straddle both worlds of enterprise and Web3, and someone who's really active and proactive. We are also looking for a token launch manager. So if you're super into tokens and token launching and how that works, we're looking for a manager to help our companies that are about to launch a token. So potentially like advice on which exchange to on, or even maybe advice on vesting. So this is for like tokenomics.
Will I ask a question? So with and if you have the answer, because I know that you're not responsible for hiring all the roles. But if for the token launch, is it less about actually the tokenomics that you could bring to the table, and more about the launch pads and the exchanges and how you can make those connections strategically, or having an understanding of tokenomics, or being able to lead on tokenomics is a...
I mean, I would say it's a bit of both. I think it's important to have that skill, because very often we're helping startups who don't necessarily have that knowledge navigate that. So I would say it's important to at least have an understanding of how these things work. But also there's just the element of it, of like the management around the token launch. So, things around like making sure that the community is engaged in the way that it's supposed to be, and what a company needs, like what ducks do you need to put in order prior to a token launch. but I think these are for, you know, later stage teams. So some more details on tokenomics probably would be important. Yeah, just an understanding of that. We're looking for a fundraising associate as well. I think this role could be a really good role for someone who's looking to transition into Web3. If you have experience sort of in with maybe investor relations, talking to investors, reaching out to investors, you know, this would be like, these would be good transferable skills to have. Obviously, we would be looking for some knowledge of Web3 and knowledge of Web3 VC, but not necessarily experience in Web3. So yeah, I would say this is a good one to transition into. We're also looking for a head of investments, and I have to say here, I am personally really rooting for us to have a more diverse candidate in this role, because the head of investments forms part of our investment team, and investment teams determine who we invest in. And as someone who really is advocating for a more diverse Web3, I think having an investment committee that's more diverse will lead into us, you know, accepting more diverse founders. So at the end of the day, obviously we will hire whoever the best candidate is, but I'm just putting it out there in case you were on the fence, if definitely apply. So the head of investments, definitely, I would say 2 skill sets required for this, but one is like just knowing what's going on in the Web3 space, what trends are emerging, having an insight or a thesis about what you would like to see and where you would like the space to go. And then the other end of it is like, there's also just like a sort of like because it's a head role, there's a managerial aspect to it where you're also running a team that's, you know, we look at a crazy amount of applications. So sort of sorting through that. We're also looking for a product engineer, and product engineers, it's a founder facing role. So we're looking for product engineers who also like communicating and talking to founders, other founders. So a product engineer would be giving founders advice on what best technical routes to take. I think it's a pretty cool role because you get to see a bunch of different startups and get familiar with many different tech stacks, etc. And then we are also looking for a marketing advisory manager. So this is also a founder-facing role. And I would say it's basically shaping how Outlier Ventures gives marketing advice to the startups that join Outlier Ventures. Obviously, we have, some things in place already, but we're always looking to level up that function. So marketing advisory would include community management, but also things like reaching out to influencers or even B2B strategies, or reaching out to developers and that. So if you have that experience and maybe you've helped one startup do it, but now you want to jump into a bunch of different roles, I think this is a really exciting role. And I think there's a lot of room to shape our offerings. So I think, yeah, it's a slightly more senior role as well. Finally, we have an accelerator operations associate. So I think this is also a good one for people who are looking to break into the space, because you can use your operational skills and your maybe in ops, and then to apply it into like the accelerator operations. But meanwhile, you'll also be working within a Web3 context and learning a lot about what happens there and what our founders, Web3 founders, are looking for. So I think it's a really good transition job. I would say, like, if someone in 5 years would like to be a COO, then a good place to start would be with an accelerator operations associate role.
Amazing. Thank you very much for sharing that. If anyone's got any specific questions and they would like to, or they're very interested in those roles, then perhaps you could also drop into the chat higher where people can find out more and maybe apply, and any top tips that they might want to ask you. Eva, we'd love to know about the roles that Luxo have, and the roles that you're involved in, and the stories behind who they're best suited to as you see it.
Sure. I'm just sharing the links, so you also have it on the chat.
Thank you.
So, I mean, mostly at Luxo, what we're hiring right now is mostly engineering. I think from, you know, like managing the growing team, making sure that everyone is happy and is aligned on the roadmap, but then also hands-on engineering positions. Maybe one thing that sticks out is the DevRel position that we have open, because we are looking at the mainnet launch later this year. And from there on, we will have a lot of community initiative in order to grow the ecosystem around the Luxo blockchain, which is basically like the one moment in time you want to be part of this. I think, because, you know, like you get to build an entire ecosystem of engineers. I mean, we have been previously collaborating with Gitcoin on hackathons and so on. My recruiting colleague is actually right now at ETH Denver to represent Luxo there and find people. And then over the next coming weeks, we will be also adding more positions on the non-tech side, including product design and also production things I'm not allowed to talk about, unfortunately, but in line with the Dematerialized and Maison Luxe, our internal fashion label, we will be launching more initiatives where we're really trying to bridge basically physical and digital fashion goods. And there's a couple of very, very cool things in the making. And in regards to maybe applying with us, because also that was earlier, yeah, we don't expect really anyone to walk in as an expert when it comes to Web3, you know, but I mean, obviously the low level material that is available, like white papers and so on. I mean, if you apply with us, then we expect you that you have at least read into it, and maybe, you know, it's even okay to point out things that you haven't understood or that you don't agree with. But that's already much better than having no idea at all, or not even knowing which blockchain you're talking to, which we all have seen, right? Where people just, yeah, spray the applications across the industry and see what sticks, and that's obviously the ones that drop out very quickly. And I mean, I'm quite ruthless when it comes to meaningless interviews where people don't come prepared, you know, or just end calls after 5 minutes. And there's no hard feelings about that, but don't expect us to, you know, like spend time with you if you come unprepared, because we also usually try to do our homework and, yeah, really match candidates and their past experience with the roles that we have. What we do internally is we also develop so-called scorecards where we really try to understand, you know, like what's the skill set that we're really looking for. And I think that's, you know, I mean, not everyone does that, but I think it's very important to enable alignment between your personal skills and what's needed in the role. And maybe for people that are applying right now, you know, often we have very particular needs for our positions. So don't be upset if it doesn't work out. I mean, we try to, or like we always give feedback, but I think it's important to note that we also, you know, like run a talent pool, and if people are generally motivated and excited about the mission of Luxo, then we usually also come back to them at some point in the further process.
So
Thank
we
you.
haven't, no, thank you. We have a number of developers on the call. So if anyone is a developer and would like to ask a couple of questions directly to Ivo, please put your hand up. I would love you to be able to have that opportunity, because I'm sure whatever you ask, other people want to ask. Heather, you've taken your camera off. Is that a sign that you might want to ask a question? And if so,
Well,
please go ahead.
I'd had a couple of questions for Ivo. Did you work with Jonas Seifert?
No, that name doesn't ring a bell.
Okay.
But
No, he used to work at Luxo. That's why I was asking. But yeah, I see that you do have a blockchain engineer for the consensus layer available. So that might be something that I would be interested in.
Did you have a specific question?
No, I just wanted to find out, like, is this, because sometimes I see roles and they are on the job boards for the time and they're not actually still open. So I just wanted to make sure that these are all open roles.
yeah, these are all open roles at the moment. Yes.
Okay. Okay, great, thank you.
And specifically for Luxo, I'm sure it's the same for other blockchains as well, particularly. But you like to hire from your community as well. So if anyone's on the call that hasn't yet joined the community and is interested, like Heather, in a position, can you talk to us a little bit more about how you guys engage with your community and how you find your hires through that? And anyone else who, you know, as a panelist who's got experience in that, please share. But for you, Ivo.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously, I mean, our Discord community is a couple of thousand people, you know, so we continuously share hiring updates there. We also try to keep people posted on positions that we fill up. I think that's, you know, like if you're generally interested or excited about what Luxo is doing, but you don't see the right position, I guess hanging out in the community and like, yeah, even touch basing with people that are within the same department or like in the same profession that you are is something that has worked pretty well in the past, you know, like, I mean, we do discuss a lot of things, also like questions within the community quite publicly. So there's always also an opportunity to chip in your professional opinion, basically in certain channels. And that then often I see, for example, that my colleagues come to me and be like, hey, there's this person from the community that does X, Y, Z, and that's exactly what we need right now. Maybe either it be for a freelance project or for permanent role. Can you please put them into the process? And that's obviously the first people that we'll take forward. Because we already, you know, have touch base with them and so on. So that's, I think, without a lot of effort, building like a long-term talent relationship in a way and getting involved, you know, is something that's pretty awesome. And from my experience, having worked in more traditional recruitment areas before, is something very unique to the Web3 community.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, Bridget, if I may, I also wanted to respond to the question about open positions. So, and also I wanted to touch a little bit upon the kissing frogs phenomenon. I am not a professional recruiter, but I did take over the recruiting for this Web3 company that is actually a Web3 infrastructure company for gaming companies, but they're now also expanding to other industries. And like I said, they just raised their second round and are hiring all functions, including marketing, and that is the one that I helped with. But there are at the moment already advanced negotiations with a few candidates. Basically, they're deciding now. And there is also a position that is open, and it is a full stack developer position. So I saw that there are a few people that are in engineering. So please reach out to me and I'm happy to connect you with the CEO. But what I wanted to say is about the kissing the frog thing. So I understand that for Sharon, it's more like talking to someone and in the call finding out that actually this person is not the right fit. And I have seen, especially with this company that I'm talking about right now, this Web3 company, there was 2 people that joined actually the company, and then during their like probation period, it turns out that they actually are not delivering to what they promised. And I think this is something that I would generally give advice about. If you feel that you want to go full steam on, you know, on whatever it is you do and you want to deliver, I think this is the better fit for smaller startups where they expect a lot of ownership, a lot of proactivity, and, you know, basically just taking the lead on all of the things and putting the measurement on all of this things that you are doing, be it engineering, be it marketing, be it sales. And I think this is something that candidates need to be really honest with themselves, because it can really ruin a company if the person is not right, especially at the very early stage. So what I'm trying to say with this is, what I know this, let's say, client of mine, because I was their consultant, is looking for someone who can take the lead and actually tell the team what they need to do, and not to wait for, you know, advice or direction as you would do at big companies. Like when I worked at Apple, that is what we did. Basically, there's everything, you just need to execute. So that's why, please, if there are people in the audience that are like that really understand how to structure their work and know how to take a risk, please do connect with me, and I'm very happy to forward it to the CEO.
Amazing. Anyone who's got questions in the audience, please, as I said, raise your hand, pop it into the chat. But Sharon, we'd love to be able to hear as well from CoinCover what positions are open, what you've seen in terms of people who have applied and why they're not the right fit, where you think it will be helpful, and what you guys are looking for.
was going to say is that if you want to get into Web3, watch the news feeds and see what's going on, because it can highly correlate to the jobs that open up. And the reason I say that is because one of the interesting roles that we have right now is a policy lead. And that is for like a legal person. And basically, I'm glad I don't have this job, but basically what they do is they read all of the policy documents, the white papers, all of the documents or sort of like requests for feedback from the government proposals, and their job is to go through it, to explain it to the executive team, to understand what our take is, to understand how these policies or procedures can influence the industry, how it can impact our business, and basically write the report. So you'll have noticed, obviously, since the beginning of the year, there's been a lot of implosion in crypto. You'll see that the SEC, the FCA have put in a lot of noise. They're putting in rules, regulations. You'll see in Europe that you've got MiCA coming in. And you're also seeing that the UK has 2 different consultations right now. One is about crypto assets, and then there's a different consultation on the digital pound. So I've just spurted off a whole bunch of things that this poor person has to go and sift through and make comments. But my point really is that the dynamics changes, and we didn't have, a policy lead or like a legal job like that 6 months ago or a year ago. So what I'm trying to say is that look at the news, see where it's going, sort of like second guess what that means in terms of what companies need to do to keep ahead, to be compliant. Compliance is going to be something that is coming into Web3, into crypto. You're going to have a lot more jobs popping up to support businesses being compliant. So that's one of the interesting ones that I have. I have a lot of roles in sales and marketing. So I've got 9 live roles in sales and marketing at the moment. And we, as I mentioned, we just secured a new raise, and our sort of like mission right now is growth through partnerships. So it is basically, we have a product and service, we offer it to crypto providers. And so a lot of the sales and marketing roles are really about segmenting the market, finding the key buyers, messaging and positioning our products to the key buyers, going out and talking to them, doing solution sales. So as I said, 9 roles around basically bringing in partners for us. That includes account-based management. It includes marketing executives. It includes senior business development executives. We are also, post-COVID, we're doing events. So we've got an events manager that we're looking for. And of course, we have to service all of our customers. So we've got a head of customer success that we have. We also do have engineering roles. So we have engineering roles in essentially full stack engineers. We have entry levels, juniors, seniors in terms of engineers. And we're also looking for a machine learning engineer. It's because our business is all around risk, and we use machine learning to look at behavioral analysis, look at what people are doing, and flag up anything that's a bit out of the norm, all in order to try to help people keep their crypto safe. And we also have that don't actually really need any Web3 experience, but if you want to take them, then all of a sudden you're going to be surrounded by a Web3 environment. And if you're willing and able, it's a stepping stone to just be immersed in a Web3. So when I say that, we have an HR admin assistant, and we also have an executive assistant. And so basically they are, traditional people that keep on top of things, really good at project management, really good at, making sure the CEO is where he needs to be, answering the right emails, ignoring the wrong telephone calls. You don't need crypto experience for that. But if you're willing to come in and do a role like that, you'll be shocked at how much learn about crypto and Web3 within the first 3 months. And again, the business is growing, so there's always opportunities for people to grow up the ladder. And I'll give an example actually. So when we were about 6-7 people at CoinCover, we had a small little office in Cardiff, and we hired what was an office admin. So basically, the person that, unlocked the office in the morning, make sure that the photocopier had paper, make sure that there was some milk, and a bunch of other things. I downgrade that a little bit, but they basically ended up doing HR responsibilities. They ended up doing the events management. They ended up doing so many different things, and ultimately sort of jumped 2, 3, 4 rungs of the ladder, and within 3 years ended up being head of people. So that is definitely, we talked about how you could sort of get an entry-level job, and just because you do a bit of everything and you happen to be good at doing a little bit of everything, you can really quickly shoot up the ladder and be ahead of, within a couple of years. So yeah, the good news is that we have roles all across the piece, including customer support. We're also looking for a head of customer success. So we've got them all across the piece.
Amazing. So I have 2 more questions that I want to be able to get out before we close down the 11 minutes. I'm sure we have time for some more. And Karen, we'd love to be able to hear some of your insights and inputs too. But the first question is very quick. I think it's very quick to answer, hopefully. How much of your roles that we've spoken about are because we have a remote community, we have a global community, people are dialing in from everywhere. So if you could just say how much is it's remote, or if you're a company that's more focused on geographies, what those geographies are. And Sharon, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so things like the executive assistant, that's going to be in Cardiff because that's where he is, right? As I mentioned, we do have a Cardiff office, we have a London office. We do like collaboration, so we are a hybrid. And so people tend to go in and out of the office maybe two times a week, and they usually collaborate on when they're going to do it, because we have the whiteboards, we have brainstorming sessions, we're trying to do roadmap development, and that is like, I find, and I think the business finds, it's really conducive to be in the same room. But we also know that there's some very specialist roles, such as the machine learning engineer, and that one can be fully remote. At this point in time, we're probably 95% UK based. And if we weren't UK based, it's usually a salesperson that is in a particular territory, which is conducive to sort of networking and just having a network. But I would say hybrid, 2 days a week in the office.
Amazing. Anastasia and Haya, you shared that your roles are remote, so we can make that answer that quite quickly and simple. Eva, what is it like for Luxo? And
we're also hiring completely remote. Like all of the positions are usually CET ±3. We also have people already in countries like Canada, so there can be exceptions. If a position is particularly in office, then we would mention that right in the title of the job ad, because we learned this way around makes more sense.
yes,
because obviously there's stuff like like things like accounting, you still deal with paper, unfortunately. Yeah, so that's the things that you kind of have to do in the office, or at least be in the office on a very regular basis. But for everything else, like, I mean, we're super global. Obviously try to bring in everyone quite regularly. I think just this week we had a meeting with like 20-30 people in the office, because sometimes it's also nice to be together and like sit in a room and be able to brainstorm and be a bit more hands-on creative than just like sitting in front of your computer, which still makes a different vibe, but otherwise we're pretty open and able to on that topic.
amazing. And Karen, what about from your perspective?
So I'd say like 70% of the roles we work would be like with clients that are working remotely. there are sometimes requirements for like time zones, so like plus minus like European time zones, because a lot of the companies we work with are in Europe. Two roles maybe that we're looking for right now. So like in general, we're always looking for like community managers, marketing managers, and software engineers. But two roles I just want to like quickly touch on because I thought they're quite interesting. We're looking for one tech lead right now for it's a Web3 sports company. They do a lot around like sports betting. It's a quite cool company. They completed a Techstars Accelerator last year and now looking for like a tech lead. So someone ideally with like Solidity experience and React. So if that is interesting for anyone, like please get in touch. And then the other one, which is a bit of an unusual one, is we're looking for a co-founder for an esports Web3 company. So it should be like a technical person, but if anyone of you wants to get involved with a company like quite early on in like a founding or co-founding position, this is a really cool opportunity. So yeah, I'll leave my LinkedIn here as well, so you can just reach out to me. So yeah, but in general, as I said, like most of the roles would be remote. The co-founder should be based in Ireland. The tech lead can be anywhere. So yeah.
Amazing. And the other question that I wanted to get in is, this is the bigger pie. We know that this is tech, and the hostility that women face sometimes in a male-dominated environment can be uncomfortable, unsafe, toxic, and stunt your career. So it's very important for us that we understand, what are the diversity and inclusion policies within the company. I know that sometimes a company has more men in positions than they want, and they're looking actively to make sure that they can grow diverse teams. So this is not about everyone having the ratios right. But if you could go around and sort of share a one-liner or two-liners, I'm aware that I want to hear from everyone, and we've only got 6 minutes left, and I just want also to have one last hand of people sort of once they've been listening to this follow up with everyone. So Karen, the companies that you work with, what does it look like when it comes to diversity and inclusion?
So when it comes to like advertising jobs and reaching out to people, we always try to like write our job ads and everything as inclusive as we can, just to like make things right, like really at the top of the funnel. And then when it comes to interviewing, we always look to have like an even mix between, for example, female, male, or like non-binary people. So we're looking to, like, at the start of the process, get a as diverse as possible pool of candidates, which then like should result in having a quite diverse outcome for the team to hire. Yeah, that's really the main focus for us, because like you can't start at the end. You have to start at the start of it, reach out to the right people, get in touch with the right communities, like the bigger pie. I've seen Lauren there as well of Web3. So get in touch with those communities, see like who's in there, and really like target those people that will help to increase the diversity in the company.
Amazing. Hiya, Outlier Ventures.
So yeah, at Outlier Ventures, we're always trying to get more diverse candidates. So we're trying to expand our outreach. So please, definitely share the job opportunities. And then within the company, I think there's a very like active group of employees who make sure that everyone feels included. And I would say one thing is that because we're fully remote, it means we have a very international workforce, which is also, great in terms of diversity of thought and diversity. Please.
Amazing. Anastasia, the companies that you were mentioning.
Yes. So I think in my experience, and I did it with one job description, a marketing manager at a Web3 company. I have done it twice. So the first one, I just took what the co-founders prepared and they tried to make it as inclusive as possible. And I just, edited, just combined all of the things into a structured way and then put it on there. And I got like 90% of men and 10% of women who were not as experienced. They were just very interested in going into the space. And of course, you want to get the best person, and it is clearly the men in this scenario. But I was wondering, it cannot be. I'm sure there are women like, for example, Sharon, she's been in this space for 8 years. I'm sure there are women like that as well. And so what I did, I just took the job description off. I changed the wording and I explicitly mentioned that, okay, women and LGBTQ representatives will be preferred with the if the qualifications are equal. And I got really like 50-50 this time. And I was a bit unsure. I thought maybe it would be even perceived as positive discrimination, but it wasn't. And actually, even the men said, we really appreciate that you wrote something like that because we believe in an inclusive environment. So I'd say the company I worked with and which is hiring now, they are really committed to it, but unfortunately they are still very much male dominated, but they are aware and they're working to hire as many women in the upcoming roles as possible.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Quickly, Sharon from you and then Eva.
Yep. So I will just echo things that people have said before, is that you've got to get it right through the funnel. So you've really got to think about how you're writing your job descriptions, when you're reaching out to people, really think about who you're reaching out to, bring in a wide array of candidates, try some candidates that might not look just spot on, just so that you can judge how good you are actually at evaluating CVs. Also, more recently, we actually are now putting our hiring managers on training courses, and that is basically to take out their biases. So it's not just, it's biases against age, sex. I think in general, people just hire people like themselves.
Yeah.
So it's basically not looking in the mirror all day long and just looking at how people can add value, looking at their skills. So we now do training as well for our managers to try to take out all sorts of biases, but ultimately it's the funnel. You have to get the JDs right. You have to talk to women, diverse people. You have to get them in the door to talk to before you can actually hire them. So it starts right back then.
Amazing. And Eva, the culture at Lux.
I mean, but maybe just to pick something out that hasn't been mentioned. I mean, we really try to, like when we write our job ads already to lower the bar, because as many of you probably have heard, people look very differently at job descriptions. Some people take them for granted and like every detail is being evaluated before whether someone submits an application or not, and other people don't basically look at a job description at all and just apply like across the board, which we do end up seeing in our applicant tracking system, of course, so that there's no point in applying to more than maybe 2 or 3 meaningful positions. But I've seen people that applied for 7 or 8 different jobs, and latest with the second or third time, it's pretty clear that this is pointless. But yeah, so job ads, like, it's always like, I mean, you never know what's the internal situation in an organization when that job description has been created. Sometimes the situation is very desperate, and then the job description very quickly becomes like the internal wish list from the hiring manager, and then you can probably like cross off half of the things that are on that job description and still have a good chance. I think, yeah, getting past that first step in the funnel is, align yourself, align your personal experience, what's been described in the job description. And then, once people take the second look and in preparation for an early recruiter call, I think then it's completely fine to be open about what you know and what you can do. And because that's really what the first call is for, right? I mean, we're talking in order to understand whether there's alignment between what you want to do as a candidate in your next career step versus what the company really needs. And here, also from a candidate perspective, maybe when you talk to recruiters, they should have a very clear understanding, even in that first call already, what they need in order to fill the role and what are the qualifications that are required. And yeah, basically helping both sides to really early on figure out whether it even makes sense to go down that road, something that I always try to propagate or like to promote within every process that we run, basically, in order to, like time is very valuable. You don't want to sit hours and hours in an interview process. So I think that's something that is really, really important for me personally and also for us as a company.
And I think that's a wonderful point to finish on. The time is very precious, so I know that we're 2 minutes over, and I'll sort of close us out. Well, there's loads more that we could talk to. Anastasia, you didn't get to share your story, so perhaps we could do a follow-up, and then when we share the recording, maybe share some of those insights that you didn't get a chance to on this call. It's very, very important, I think, that we listen to what Ivo said there, because statistically, women don't apply for a job unless they think they've got 80 to 100% of all the key requirements, which, as Ivo said, is a wish list. So let's start being a bit bolder about putting out there, even if we can't see that we have the exact match, because the other people out there possibly and probably don't. So it's bringing your transferable skills and the skills that show you how quickly that you can learn and adapt and onboard new things. So thank you so much to our panelists. I've really, really enjoyed listening and learning from you all. This recording will be sent out. We'll create a blog, we'll do some key highlights, and all of the panelists will also, when we share out the recording, tell you the best way to be able to either contact them or find out where the job positions are and move forward with that. So thank you very much, everyone. I really appreciate you being here and your participation.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.